Hi everybody, so today I'm going to be showing you guys how to do mini project 4. That is the mini project about the progressive income tax. So for this mini project we're just going to need a blank spreadsheet. So here I am at Google Drive and I'm going to make a new Google Sheets. Okay, so what we're going to try to do with this activity is create a line chart or a line graph. And while there's lots of ways to do that, I'm going to show you guys probably the easiest way that we can do it. So before we get into the actual mini project, I just want to show you the basics of creating this type of graph. So if I have any sort of data, so I can just start making something up here and then maybe make up a nice pattern. We'll go by tens, something simple. If I just select all of this data and hit insert chart, and I go down to choose the chart type and I select a line chart, this chart will collect all of our data points. So as you see, if I hover over this, we can see little dots here that represent the actual data that I typed in, and Excel has connected them all with a nice line. So that's the type of chart that we're going to be trying to make today. But if you remember from the lesson, we have lots of data points that we need to get into our chart. Now, we could accomplish this by just doing a couple data points and letting Excel fill in the gaps for us, but I'm actually going to show you guys some nifty Excel tricks that'll help us create a lot of data really fast. So here's what we're going to do. In this column, I'm going to type income in thousands of dollars. And in order to make the text fit in here nicely, I can just select this column, hit Format, go to Text Wrapping, and hit Wrap. And that should fix it for me. Now, in this column, I'm going to put taxes, but this is going to be for the progressive tax, because if you remember, afterwards we're going to do the flat tax. So, here's what we need. We need a lot of data, and like I said, we could just use a couple points, but I'm going to show you a quick way that we can get many points. So what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to start from 1, and then 2, and then 3, and I could continue like this, but that would take a long time. So in Excel, once I have sort of a pattern going like this, if I select all of that, Excel can actually figure out what I want if I just click this corner and drag. So I'm going to drag this all the way down, and I'm going to go pretty far. I'm going to go to 152. If you noticed, I started on number 2, and this took me down. Actually, it gave me one more than I wanted. I wanted to go to 150, so I'll just delete this one. So now I have 150, all the way from 1 to 150. And of course, these represent thousands of dollars from our little play model that we used in class. So here's the next part. Now, in class, we came up with formulas, and I made sure to emphasize that you needed to write those formulas down for the progressive tax, how we calculate it. You're going to want to use those formulas from class. Now, in order to make this example not give everything away, I'm going to use slightly different formulas. So my graph will look mostly the same, but I'm going to have different numbers. And that's, again, because I don't want you to be able to just copy this exactly. I want you to think a little bit about what formulas should go where. But in this box, I'm going to type the formula that we had for the progressive tax on the income that was 50,000 or less. If you remember, 50,000 was the cutting point in our system. So I'm going to type a formula that's slightly different from the formula you guys should have. So I'm going to say that mine is going to be 0.2. And again, yours is going to be different, times. And now, when it comes to selecting the income, so your formula will have a G in it for gross income, I'm going to select the box that's right to the left. That means that that's the variable that I'm going to be using, in other words, is the income. So my formula looks something like this. Yours will be a little bit different. And when I hit enter, it fills this out. And now, To continue this all the way down, I just click the corner and I can drag all the way down, and I will stop right at the 50 because that's where we're going to switch things up a little bit. So now, here on 51, I will type my other formula, my formula that we generated for the income tax over 50,000. And again, mine's going to be slightly different, but you should be able to apply your formula from class here and get the right numbers. So give me a second to type this in and make sure I get it right. This should be correct. Very good. And if you want to check to make sure you did it, remember, we wanted our lines to connect here at the 50. So if I just click this and drag it upwards and replace my old formula with my new formula, it shouldn't change the value here. So for the rest of the graph, I can come down, click this corner again, and drag everything to finish it out. Perfect. So now I have this completed table for my progressive income tax, and I just need to create a chart. So just like last time, I'm going to select everything, and this time I'm going to even select these up here, these titles, because that just helps the chart figure out a little bit more when it comes to those titles of the axes and things that we might want to customize later. So if I select all my data and hit insert a chart, again, I'll have to tell it to make a line chart. And here we go. So if you see, here's that progressive tax. Yours will be slightly different looking, but we have a slightly more shallow slope here. And at 50,000, we have the turning point. It becomes a little bit more steep. So that's a bit like how yours should look. And you can change the title, change the axes as you like. This is one of the charts that you're going to need to turn in for the mini project. Now, the other charts that you're going to need are going to involve the flat tax. So we need to get a column for that. So if you give me a second, I'm dragging this up. All right, so let's make a third column here. I'm going to put taxes, but I'm going to put flat tax. Again, you can put kind of anything you like here as long as it helps you understand what's happening. So for this column, again, my formula will be slightly different than yours, but look at the formula that we had for our flat tax and type that formula in. So in my case, I'm going to do 0.25 and I'm going to multiply by the income. Always your formula should somehow involve the income. When I hit enter, it populates there. And again, I can drag everything down. Like so. All right. Now, there's multiple ways to get this chart. We could do like we've been doing in the past, and I can insert a blank chart and then tell it the data series. So I would select this is the Y, and then I would tell it this is the x-axis. But I'm going to do something slightly different just so you can see multiple ways of doing this. I'm going to first select this entire column that I want to use for my x-axis and go all the way down. Now, without unselecting this, I scroll up, and now I'm holding, on a Mac, I'm holding Command. If you're on Windows, you'll want to hold Control. Either way, hold either Control for Windows or Command for Mac. And while I'm holding that, I can click here. And if you notice, when I clicked here, it did not deselect my first column. If you click and it unselects your first column, that means you weren't holding the right button on your keyboard, and you need to try again. But if you're holding that button on your keyboard, Command for Mac, Control for Windows, it will let you do multiple selections at once, and that's what we want. So now I can start dragging down this column while I still have the other column selected. And oops, I went too far because I wasn't paying attention. So now I have both of these columns selected, the income and the flat tax. So I can insert a chart for that as well. And as you see, it's a straight flat line, as the name flat tax suggests. Now, you can do anything you like with this, I'm actually going to come over here and customize it. I'm going to change the color. So I can come to series, and I'm going to change the color on this one, and we'll see why in a second. So now I have these two graphs. And the next question, as we looked at in class, is who benefits under which tax system? Right? So the last thing we want to do is put all of this data on top of each other. So here's actually a nice little way we can do it. Since we already have the progressive tax, I'm just going to copy this graph, edit, copy, and then I'm going to just click anywhere and paste it. So now I have another one. And I might want a new title for this one since it's going to be something different. So I'm going to say progressive versus flat tax. You could give it any sort of name that you want, but here's what we have. Now if we come to setup, for this series we have the progressive income tax series, but I want to add a series. And just like last time, I can add any data I want, and I'm going to select the flat tax data so I can add it on top. Select that, hit OK. And here we go. We have a nice graph looking something like this. And if we notice, we can look at lots of different things. We can see when are people paying more for the flat tax, when are people paying more for the progressive tax, and we can look for when they break even. And like we talked about in class, we can look from the graph, we can try to look down at our table of values, or we can use algebra to figure this out. So these are the three graphs that you're going to need to turn in for your mini project. And aside from that, follow the instructions on Blackboard as for which questions from the activity you'll need to answer along with the mini project. And those can be turned in either in the Blackboard text editor or as a separate Word document, or you can try to type them somewhere in Excel. Sometimes students have typed their responses in the little boxes, and if you notice, I can type a long response in here, hit enter, and it still shows. Sometimes it doesn't show, but either way, it's not the nicest approach, but if you wanted to type any responses in those boxes, I'd definitely be able to find them and read them. So, I hope that helps you guys with mini project number 4, and I hope you guys have a great day.